Joining me now from Philadelphia is Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson. They're publicists for Bill Cosby. And in Washington, D.C. is Shanon Lee. She's an author, journalist, and an activist. Shanon, let me begin with you. 3 to 10 years for Bill Cosby for sexual assault. He'll be in a Pennsylvania prison. Is that justice? Has justice been served, Shanon?
Absolutely. This is a journey that began for Andrea Constand back in 2004, so Cosby has been the beneficiary of deferred justice. This is absolutely just.
And so, Andrew, the judge says Bill Cosby is a sexually violent predator. You've likened him to Jesus. Who should we believe?
Good morning, first of all, and I think media has tried to take my words out of context. What I said, Jesus, just like he was crucified in the public for his views and his beliefs when he was innocent, Mr. Cosby is innocent of these charges and he's being crucified. And then I followed up to say that I'm not saying he's Jesus, but no black man in America is safe in his justice system. And we're seeing it every day right now. We're looking at these Kavanaugh hearings and how these white men in Congress and in the Senate are protecting him and providing a safe haven for him, saying that these allegations are decade-old allegations and there's no evidence. Same for Mr. Cosby. What happens to the guy in Seventh Heaven? He admitted to molesting boys. Criminal charges wasn't brought up against him. You have Weinstein, who's free to go wherever he wants to go. You have former news anchors like Matt Lauer. You name it, the list goes on. Charlie Rose, CBS, Les Moonves. None of these guys are being charged. The case against Constand and Cosby was settled out in civil court. He waived his Fifth Amendment rights and paid her $3.8 million. The case was over and done with because the former DA Castor said that she had inconsistencies in her testimonies and tampering with the tape. So the evidence wasn't there to fit the crime. This was a political campaign by District Attorney Kevin Steele, Willie Horton style. If you elect me to DA, I would bring Bill Cosby to justice. Let
me get Shannon's response. So Shanon, this is an example of a racist criminal justice system, not about a predator who has had his comeuppance. Address that.
Yeah, I believe that it is an insult to survivors of sexual assault everywhere. It's an insult to those who have been falsely imprisoned, who have actually been the victim of a biased criminal justice system, to sit there and say that this ruling was unjust. Cosby is someone who had upwards of 60 victims, potentially more. Most rapes go unreported. He is someone who was basically sentenced and convicted due to his own testimony. Jurors have since come forward and said that the most damning evidence was his own testimony, where he admitted to giving women quaaludes in order to have sex with them. So I don't think that it's fair to be dismissive, and I think that it's really disrespectful to the memory of those who have died and who have served sentences, who have been wrongly accused. This is someone who has admitted to his crimes, so I don't want everyone to get caught up in the noise. And it's interesting that you would bring Kavanaugh off, because I believe Kavanaugh will have his day. There is a hearing going on right now to block his nomination to the Supreme Court. And I believe that Dr. Ford's efforts are not in vain. I believe that others who have come forward in the past, like Anita Hill's efforts, are not in vain. And I believe he will have his day, just like Bill Cosby had his day.
And Andrew, I see you shaking your head in disagreement. I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond, but let me bring in Ebonee for the moment. Ebonee, do you think that Andrea Constand lied and all those other women who... A lot of them didn't press charges because of statute of limitations. Upward of 60 women, according to Shanon and according to the best available evidence that we all have. Do you think they all just lied?
I want to address a few things that Shanon said. Good morning, everyone, first of all. Thanks for having us. The one thing that we have needed to address for a very long time involving this case is his testimony. The media has done a great job at breaking down, as well as the district attorney, at breaking down the testimony to fit their theory. I'm not sure how many investigative journalists have taken the time to actually pull the entire transcript and read it for yourself to truly understand the context of what Mr. Cosby was saying. So that we're going to address that. His words. Yes, he spoke about what he did in the 60s and the 70s and having a good time. We're also talking about Quaaludes. How many of you have done your research to actually see the effects of Quaaludes? Not many. So we're going to sit that over here. To address your question, you mentioned 60 victims, 60 allegations, 60 accusations. No proof, no evidence. We're talking about a court of law. We are not talking about the court of public opinion. Everyone is entitled to feel the way that they feel about allegations and accusations. We are talking about due process. We are talking about the person having the ability to claim that they are innocent until proven guilty.
Enough. And now he
Correct.
has been
Mr.
proven
Cosby
guilty, Ebonee.
was proven guilty
Certainly.
in a
Now that he has been
second
proven
trial
guilty,
after
certainly. Do you have any
after
evidence that due
trial,
process was violated?
After a first trial where we received a hung jury.
It was a hung jury. Do you have any evidence now that due process was violated?
Bruce Castor promised Mr. Cosby he would never be prosecuted concerning Andrea Constand if he waived his Fifth Amendment right. He sat for that deposition under the guise that he would not be prosecuted. Breaking laws. This is his right to due process. There's no way that he would waive his Fifth Amendment right knowing that he would later on be prosecuted.
And just to jump in, during the trial this year, last year they brought in one 404B witness to testify. That didn't get them what they wanted with that one witness. This year, they brought 5 women in to say to the jury their testimonies is not a part of this case. This case is about Andrea Constand. But once the jury hears that testimony, it's ingrained in their mind. That's the first area where due process was violated. Second area, juror number 11 admitted before the trial ever started that Bill Cosby was guilty to other jurors. And we had a hearing on it. The Judge O'Neill asked this guy, did you say that he was guilty and we should vote him guilty to make a short day and we could get home to our families? Right. He said, I don't recall. That's violation of due process.
Andrew,
tampering with evidence.
Andrew,
the original tape that Gianna Constand, let me finish. The original tape that Gianna Constand used to tape Mr. Cosby, Ebonee and her team did research on it 3 weeks ago. We had a forensic lab, one of the top labs who does the forensic analysis for the FBI. Look at the tape, and it's been tampered with. The original tape is not even in evidence. And as for Shanon, my problem as a journalist, people have not been fact finders and researched the case. Read about what took place. Go and get the transcript, Shanon, online. Then you will get a vivid picture.
I can
hold on, Shanon, give me a second.
Yeah,
just a second, Shanon. So, Andrew, let me ask you a question before we go back to Shanon, because you've mentioned Kavanaugh. You've mentioned Harvey Weinstein. And this is interesting now because you've almost raised the stakes here. You're saying white men don't go to jail, but black men do. And in there, arguably, there's an implicit acceptance or an admission, in a way, Andrew. Because tomorrow, if Kavanaugh doesn't get the nomination, if tomorrow Harvey Weinstein goes to prison, what does that mean? Does that mean that your argument falls flat? Does that mean that they're all sexual predators? That you accept that Bill Cosby as well, in addition to those men, did what he did?
But let me be clear. Let me clarify what you're stating and what I'm saying. All of these white men are being protected by a system. People are coming out, white women are coming out on their behalf saying, there's no way that this could be true because the evidence is not there. They're protecting them. Same situation with Bill Cosby. No protection because it's a black man, and what Gloria Allred and all these people were able to do, they got a salt and pepper shaker out. They sprinkled a bunch of salt and a little sprinkle of black pepper to try to make it believable.
And basically, to piggyback on what Andrew was saying, in America, the justice system is not the same for people of color as it is for other people. That is a fact. That is something that cannot be argued. Equal distribution of the law is what needs to happen. You have Brock Turner, who was caught red-handed and only sentenced to 90 days. A 79-year-old in California doesn't have to register as a sex offender.
How about we all accept this?
Sexually assaulting a 5-year-old.
How about we all accept that the criminal justice system is terribly unfair, and the possibility is that Bill Cosby did what they say he did, right? Because Shannon's not saying the criminal justice system is not unfair. Shanon, come in.
Yes, absolutely. And I would love, first of all, for Ebonee to explain her expertise in toxicology, because the original testimony by Constant stated that it was a mix of Quaaludes and wine. So if she could speak to her expertise to basically, denounce what was found in court in terms of aiding
Shannon,
his crimes, I would love for her to speak to that. And as far as any statements in regards to talking about journalism, I write for the Washington Post. These articles are absolutely fact-checked. If you want to go on and say that every other publication is inaccurate and the facts are not there, you're going to have to speak out against the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN. We are there to do a job. We are there to bring the truth to the public. And I absolutely did read over testimony. I absolutely did read, and we did fact check. So this is all, I understand your motive. I understand that you're there to do a great job and do PR, but the facts still stand. Cosby was found guilty. He was basically, he was the beneficiary of a fair trial.
Before we move on, I do want to address about the testimony.
Based on his own testimony. Well, he was convicted based on his own testimony, and you can't go back and change history. You can't go back and invalidate all of the pain that his victims have gone through and have suffered in these decades where he has been allowed to walk free.
Ebonee?
And again, thank you, Shannon. And I totally apologize for interrupting you. I thought we were going to address one thing before moving on. So, yes, we can absolutely sit down and talk about those transcripts. What Andrea Constant said was nothing about Quaaludes. She said something about herbal medicines. So we need to be very clear about that.
Quaaludes and wine.
So we can put that over to the side that she never mentioned.
That's incorrect.
Again, reading those transcripts. Reading her transcripts from her police statements, 1, 2, and 3 police statements, she mentioned herbal medicine.
She never mentioned
Quaaludes
and wine.
And again, I would love to sit down and talk to you about that and compare the research on that, because I do believe you are a very, very smart woman, and I don't doubt that at all. And I believe you, maybe as a journalist, do fact find and check what material you are being given, but I cannot say that for the rest of the media. I cannot say that with absolute certainty.
And Shannon,
and also just to say he has been found guilty at this point, which is why, again, we're here to talk about what's next. We know that he's been found guilty, but he's been found guilty improperly.
He's been found guilty
using falsified evidence. He's been found.
Well, Shannon,
that's not the argument,
Shannon, you said something that's very interesting. You said we can't go back and change history. So you mean that we cannot go back and change history for black ancestors who was raped by white men and slave owners too? So
listen, Cosby had black victims, so I'm not going to let you sit here and spin the story and act like the stories of his black survivors are
and the Washington Post.
No.
We allowed you to finish, Shannon. We allowed you to finish.
And Cosby had black victims.
You said you work for the Washington Post, and you're right. The Washington Post has been one of the most egregious publications. You guys have been one-sided. You have been one-sided in your stories. I would love to sit down with you, Shannon.
I don't want this to be a discussion about the Washington Post.
All of the information with you, so
Andrew,
you
let me ask you a final
it.
question. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't want this to be about the credibility of the Washington Post or Shannon's work. Andrew, this is seen. Cosby's conviction is seen as a victory for the MeToo movement. I know that you support Cosby. Do you support the MeToo movement?
I support any woman that has proof and she has come forward to say that she has been sexually violated. I support that. I don't think the MeToo movement has been totally fair and accurate in some of the things that they have been putting out. However, if a woman says that something happened, I think we should look at it. But before we go out there and blame someone, because the minute you make the accusation, the man is plastered everywhere. Investigate it first. Investigate it, look into all the evidence, and then you bring charges forward. That's due process. And that's what I believe in. I'm not here to attack anybody's movement. I don't want anyone attacking the civil rights movement, even though a lot of people do. I'm just saying right now, the unjust judicial system for Mr. Cosby, that's what I'm talking about. He wasn't tried fairly. He shouldn't have never been there. But I will say this. They might have got what they wanted, but they gave us what we needed. And he will be found innocent up on appeal and vindicated. I guarantee you that.
Okay, something I think you can all agree on, and I don't have more time for more of a discussion here, but something that does strike me as a little bit strange. He's 81 years old, and he's being put in maximum security. I doubt his fellow prisoners are in danger. He's 81 years old. That's one big question mark. Perhaps the next time we talk about this, we can discuss that. But for the moment, Ebonee Benson, Andrew Wyatt, and Shanon Lee, I thank you all for taking the time to come and talk to us on the Newsmakers.